On death row, a German, an Italian, and an Irishman faced the grim choice of execution methods: shooting, hanging, or a slow death via AIDS injection. The German chose a bullet. The Italian opted for the noose. Then the Irishman said, "Give me some of that AIDS stuff." They gave him the shot, and the Irishman fell down laughing. The guards looked at each other and wondered what was wrong with this guy. Then the Irishman said, "Give me another one of those shots," so the guards did. Now he was laughing so hard that tears rolled from his eyes, and he doubled over. Finally, the warden said, "What is wrong with you?" The Irishman replied, "You guys are so stupid. I'm wearing a condom." Ops. An Englishman and an Irishman go to a bakery. The Englishman steals 3 buns and puts them into his pockets and leaves. He says to the Irishman, "That took great skill and guile to steal those buns. The owner didn't even see me." "That's just simple thievery," the Irishman replied. "I'll show you how to do it the honest way and get the same results." The Irishman then proceeded to call out the owner of the bakery and say, "Sir, I want to show you a magic trick." The owner was intrigued, so he came over to see the magic trick. The Irishman asked him for a bun, and then he proceeded to eat it. He asked 2 more times, and after eating them again, the owner said, "Okay, my friend, where's the magic trick?" The Irishman then said, "Look in the Englishman's pockets."
An Irishman is in a pub in London one night when he hears a familiar accent. He turns to the guy next to him and asks, "Are you Irish then?" The man gleefully answers, "That I am." The first man replies, "Well, I'll be. Let's have a whiskey. Where are you from?" The man tells him, "Dublin." The first man says, "Me too. That calls for another drink, bartender." The other guy asks, "Where in Dublin?" He answers, "Blanchardstown." The other feller answers, "Fuck me. I went to school right there at St. Thomas." The Irishman replies, "So did I. That calls for another drink." The man asks, "Who was your teacher?" He replies, "Miss O'Connor." The Irishman replies, "Holy Mother of God, she taught me too. Bartender, another round if you please." At that point, another man enters the pub and sits at the bar. The bartender approaches him, and he asks, "Evening, Wayne, is anything new going on tonight?" The bartender says, "Nothing much, just the Murphy twins getting drunk again."
An Irishman enters a pub and orders 2 pints of Guinness. He makes his way through one of the pints, and when he's finished, he starts in the second, which is now warm and flat. The barman, confused by this, asks the man, "Why don't you order a Guinness, drink it, then order another? That way, you'll have 2 good pints of Guinness, which is certainly better than how you drank those 2. The man looks up from his 2 empty glasses and says, "Well, I used to drink with my best friend every Thursday night. We would finish work, then set the world to rights over a nice pint of Guinness. I had to move here for work, but we said that every Thursday night we would go to the pub, order 2 pints, and then that way it was like we never stopped drinking together." Drawn in by the poetic nature of the Irishman's friendship, the barman drops the subject and continues his shift. A number of months go by, and the Irishman is in every Thursday. He drinks 2 pints of Guinness, drinks one, and then drinks the other. Eventually, however, one day, the Irishman enters the bar and asks for just 1 pint of Guinness. He takes the pint and drinks it. The barman tries to think of the logic as to why. Then it hits him, this man's friend must have died. If he's only drinking 1 pint, that must be because he's no longer drinking with his friend. Fearing the worst, the barman says, "Hey, look, I saw you with just one drink, and I wanted to say I'm sorry about your friend. You're a local to us now. If there's anything we can do, just let us know." "No. You've got it all wrong," says the Irishman, swallowing his sip of Guinness. "My friends are fine. It's just that I've given up drinking." A Texan walks into a pub in Ireland and clears his voice for the crowd of drinkers. He says, "I hear you Irish are a bunch of hard drinkers. I'll give $500 American dollars to anybody in here who can drink 10 pints of Guinness back to back." The room is quiet, and no one takes up the Texan's offer. One man even leaves. 30 minutes later, the same gentleman who left shows back up and taps the Texan on the shoulder. "Is your bet still good?" asks the Irishman. The Texan says yes, and asks the bartender to line up 10 pints of Guinness. Immediately, the Irishman tears into all 10 of the pint glasses, drinking them all back to back. The other pub patrons cheer as the Texan sits in amazement. The Texan gives the Irishman the $500 and says, "If you don't mind me asking, where did you go for those 30 minutes you were gone?" The Irishman replies, "Oh, I had to go to the pub down the street to see if I could do it first." Ops.
Once, I saw this guy on a bridge about to jump. I said, "Don't do it." He said, "Nobody loves me." I said, "God loves you. Do you believe in God?" He said, "Yes." I said, "Are you a Christian or a Jew?" He said, "A Christian." I said, "Me too. Protestant or Catholic?" He said, "Protestant." I said, "Me too. What franchise?" He said, "Baptist." I said, "Me too. Northern Baptist or Southern Baptist?" He said, "Northern Baptist." I said, "Me too. Northern Conservative Baptist or Northern Liberal Baptist?" He said, "Northern Conservative Baptist." I said, "Me too. Northern Conservative Baptist Great Lakes Region or Northern Conservative Baptist Eastern Region?" He said, "Northern Conservative Baptist Great Lakes Region." I said, "Me too. Northern Conservative Baptist Great Lakes Region Council of 1879, or Northern Conservative Baptist Great Lakes Region Council of 1912. He said, "Northern Conservative Baptist Great Lakes Region Council of 1912. I said, "Die, heretic. Do what you want to do." A Swede, an Irishman, a Scotsman, and their wives went to play golf one day. They were about to tee off on the first hole. The Swede's wife steps up to the tee and, as she bends over to place her ball, a gust of wind blows her skirt up and reveals her lack of underwear. "Good grief, woman! Why aren't you wearing any skivvies?" Old demanded. "Well, you don't give me enough housekeeping money to afford any." The Swede immediately reaches into his pocket and says, "For the sake of decency, here's a 50. Go and buy yourself some underwear." Next, the Irishman's wife bends over to set her ball on the tee. The same thing happened. "You woman of mine! You've no knickers on." "Why not?" asked Patrick. She replies, "I can't afford any on the money you give me." Patrick reaches into his pocket and says, "For the sake of decency, here's a 20. Go and buy yourself some underwear." Lastly, the Scotsman's wife bends over. Again, the same thing happened. "For Jake's sake, Aggie, where the friggin' hell are your drawers?" Duncan inquired. She too explains, "You didn't give me enough money to be able to afford any." The Scotsman reaches into his pocket and says, "Well, for the love o' decency, here's a comb. Tidy yourself up a bit." Ops.
Ready to laugh like never before? Hit subscribe now and buckle up for endless comedic joy. Don't miss out, join the fun today.